Okay, Dr. Zach, I'm so excited to be expanding on this topic with you, all about the different components of our higher self. I know today we're talking all about compassion, and we've already covered love. But maybe before we get into it, you can just share a little bit about who you are and what you do, and what we're really going to learn about today.
Okay, thanks, Sheri. It's a pleasure being back here. I'm excited too. So let me briefly tell about myself. Professionally, I was an eye doctor, became a venture capitalist in healthcare, and then I had to get back to my spiritual roots about 5, 6 years ago, and started developing a meditation program called the HAPCO Mindfulness Journey. That's available on the app, on the Apple Store and the Google Play. And it's 75 hours of corporate meditation and 75 hours of personal self-development meditations. So, and right now, that's who I am now, as a teacher of meditation. So, as you mentioned, I talked last time about love. Now we're going to talk about compassion, because the reason why I talk about these 5 basic components of the higher self is because it is essential, I believe, in a meditative practice to highlight each one of those components to bring our higher selves to come alive. Because the basic system is that we have a dormant neural network in our brain that represents our higher self. And it's dormant because the ego mind has dominated our consciousness. And because the ego has dominated our consciousness, our higher self has just had to sit in the shadows and stay dormant. So those neural networks, those neurons that create a pattern that are attuned to our higher selves, is just hardly being active at all. Periodically it becomes active, but through meditation, through loving kindness meditation, compassion meditations, one on peace, one on joy, one on intuitive wisdom. As we meditate, we energize that dormant neural network. And if you energize it enough, it will pop up and come alive and begin to dominate your consciousness. So that's the basic overall strategy of the HAPCO Mindfulness Journey. So let's talk about compassion. I want to start off with one of my favorite quotes, and this is by Albert Einstein, of all people. Our task must be to free ourselves by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and whole of nature and its beauty. So what touches me when I read that is the crisis that we're facing right now, which is, as he talks about, all living creatures and all beings, which highlight the global crisis that we face right now. And that our hearts go out to our loved ones, to our neighbors. And when you're on watching television or on radio or on the web, you're seeing that this is a global crisis. Everybody, almost every nation is in lockdown right now. So one has to feel a tremendous amount of compassion for everybody, because we're all in this together. And that's what, at the root of what compassion is all about, is the feeling, the connectedness between ourselves and others. And so if we have the capacity to feel that connection with everybody all across the globe, then the ability and the sense of having compassion with everybody that we experience and run into each day should be just part of that sense of compassion. And we have trouble being compassionate. We're sort of compassion challenged. And the question is, why are we so compassion challenged? If we have all these great capabilities of the higher self, well, it goes back again to that our consciousness has been dominated by the ego mind. And the ego mind is not compassion at all. It's really based on fear. It protects us, it separates us. You know, don't touch that person. Oh, look over here. Let's walk around that person. I mean, those things are important now as we have to keep our distance. But even before this crisis happened, that's what the ego mind, criticizing other people, creating a sense of separation. And then the question is, how do we then override the ego mind and feel a great sense of compassion for the people that we really care about and really want to connect with? And so that's what the meditation is all about, in bringing the higher self to dominate our consciousness, so we can get in touch with all the beautiful things that really we're all about, which is love, compassion, joy. I mean, don't we want to experience joy? Peace of mind, and we need a lot of peace of mind today. And also wisdom, the wisdom to figure out how to work our way out of the situation we're in.
I love that. And when you think about the significance of forgiveness when it comes to compassion, for someone that is not really feeling compassionate and they're having a tough time, maybe they've built up these types of walls, or maybe they're just having a tough time forgiving people in their life. Can you maybe expand on how maybe these meditations could help that?
Well, as we talked about with love, that we have a projection light of love inside of us. We also have a projection light of compassion inside of us. And that light of compassion is really a function of how compassionate we are of ourselves. Because that's where it really stems from. If we're not compassionate with ourselves, we're going to not be very compassionate about others, and we're going to become critical of others. And one of the hardest things to face in life is the things that we're most critical about other people are the things that we're most critical about ourselves. So when somebody acts in a particular way and it resonates with something that we're critical about ourselves, we look at that other person and we say, I don't like that person for X, Y, and Z. And then to become in touch with the fact that that's the same thing that you are critical about yourself. Then all of a sudden it opens up a whole new vista, because it's not so much that other, yes, they could be a pain in the neck or doing something that's maybe serious or whatever the circumstances are. But one of the first things in dealing with that, or dealing with that person or that circumstance, is to begin to start doing the inner work, discovering more about yourself. And one of the things that people discover when they do the compassion exercises is that they find out that they're not very compassionate about themselves. And that becomes a need to heal yourself. And that's where the exercises come from and highlight, where you actually start expressing things of compassion. I wish myself well. I wish myself love. I wish myself to be cared for. I wish to be compassionate for myself. And every time you say that, it sparks something in the neural network of your higher self. Every time you say that. And each neuron that you stimulate when you do that actually becomes more easily innervated the next time. And also it stimulates other nerve growth in the brain to support that. So going back to your question, the first thing is to work on yourself and then begin to practice showing compassion to the other person and see how that feels. See if all of a sudden you can work on developing compassion with that person, because you may now start coming from a place of love. And that may resonate with that other person. And they all of a sudden start feeling a sense of love and compassion towards you. And you start developing an upward spiral of positivity. And all of a sudden the circumstances goes from a negative one to a positive one.
I love that. And there's so many things you mentioned that I take away, and I'm hearing the connectivity of compassion. I know when I think about compassion, I think about in a moment softening my gaze. And what I mean by that is where we're so quick to judge and blame, I feel I'm able to express compassion because in that moment, I understand that I'm assuming I know this person better than they know themselves. And I'm assuming a role that I don't actually have because I can't read their mind and know what they're thinking. So I think what compassion does to me is it really humbles me. And it's been a part of my practice. And I feel like the more that I've personally meditated, the more I'm able to take that soft gaze with me out into the world. And the world is constantly trying to make you harder. I know in the corporate technology world where I was for about a year, it's so hard. And so all it's about is results and achievements. And I love where you talk about HAPCO having specific meditations geared to the corporate environments, not just for folks like myself who might be seeking self-development, but maybe you can touch a little bit on compassion in the corporate world.
Well, it's critical because, you know, for the last, I don't know how many years, you know, we talk about engagement, employee engagement. How do we raise the engagement of our employees? Well, as you probably know, because you've worked in corporate culture and applied your expertise in that area, that the need to create a positive relationship with your manager, which is one of the most important things, because most people have a negative relationship with their job and quit, primarily because of a negative relationship with their manager. Now, if you can start developing in meditation, sort of get away from the field of battle, let's say, you know, the day-to-day stress. But when you wake up in the morning and before you go to sleep at night, or if you can meditate during the day, you start creating compassionate thoughts about your manager and come from more of a loving place. And then all of a sudden, when you meet that manager, instead of, that's an SOP, then all of a sudden it starts triggering positive thoughts, loving thoughts. And you begin to start relating to your manager in a way that can be supportive. And all of a sudden the manager says, wait a second, Zachary or Sheri, I feel something different going on with you. And all of a sudden that brings out, again, like we were talking about, it resonates a positive experience for your manager. And that's not only for the manager, but your buddy and your rest of the people in your team or the corporation. So you can nurture positive responses within the corporate workplace, where then you become more collaborative, you're more engaged, you become more creative. Everybody's enjoying working together so that they can stay more focused on the results, because companies tend to just look at the bottom line, let's get this objective done, and they just look past the consciousness and the personal experiences that each individual person is having. And that's a tremendous mistake. So meditation and being able to prepare yourself and change your state of mind can change the whole culture of a corporation.
Yeah, I love that. And this has been so informative. I can't thank you enough for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on before I let you go about compassion?
Well, I want to say this, that what's very important in companies, going back to the corporate environment, is the CEO. Okay. If a company is interested in incorporating a mindfulness program at their company, and obviously it's always voluntary, all the employees are looking to the CEO. Is the CEO starting to do the meditation also? If you are a CEO or close to a CEO and advise them, and you're thinking about doing a meditation program at your company, it is so critically important to have the CEO get in front of the company, say, I'm starting this myself. I tried it out. It's having a big positive effect on me, and I would like you to participate as well. It is voluntary, but I'm letting you know that this is something that can transform our company.
I love that. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Zach. It's been such a pleasure.
Sheri, thanks so much for hosting this. Have a good day.